is Miranda Snow. I am the Fall Prevention Coordinator here at Central Ohio Primary Care, and we are going to talk today a little bit on the fundamentals of fall prevention and our home fall prevention and how we can make that a little bit safer. First off, a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Miranda. I'm a physical therapist assistant here with Central Ohio Primary Care, and I'm also our fall prevention program coordinator. I've been teaching our fall prevention classes since the beginning of January 2020, and I've also been treating patients with our physical therapy department since January of 2020 as well. I have included a picture of my family over here. I have a 2.5-year-old little girl, and I'm expecting another little girl at the end of February. So we will here shortly be a family of 4. When I'm teaching the classes, it's my favorite part of my job. But one of my favorite things about the program is being able to hear how rewarding it is at the end of the 7 weeks and how so many people didn't realize that there are multiple different aspects that can cause a fall, and that can lead to a fall or relate to a fall. So it's just a lot of fun to hear those stories at the end of the 7 weeks. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what can lead us to a fall today, and then a little bit on some home fall prevention. But medications are a big one that can lead us to an increased risk of falls, especially if we have any side effects to those medications. Maybe we get dizziness or we get a little bit unbalanced. That can lead us to an increased risk. Home hazards, maybe we leave some throw rugs around, or our bathtub's a little slippery. That can lead us to an increased risk of falls, which we'll talk about some modifications that can be made for those a little bit later on. Vision being another one. So if we have any impairments in our vision, that can lead us to an increased risk of falls. Community safety, maybe we are going out a little bit later in the evening, and it gets dark out and we find ourselves rushing after we go to get groceries. That can lead us to an increased risk of falls, and maybe we need to think about planning that a little bit differently to make sure that we're out in the daylight and not late in the evenings. If we're not eating a well-balanced diet, that can lead us to an increased risk of falls as well. If maybe we have a vitamin D or calcium deficiency, that can lead not only to an increased risk of falls, but it can also lead us to an increased risk of fractures that come from those falls. Vitamin D is also one of the only vitamins that's linked to muscle weakness, which kind of leads us to our next one. Muscle weakness can increase our risk of falls. Maybe as we've aged, we've become a little bit more sedentary. We don't move as much as what we used to. Those muscles don't work as well as what they used to, and that can lead us to an increased instability and increased risk of falls. If maybe we have any gait abnormalities or foot pain, that can lead us to a risk. And if we're not selecting the proper footwear. So if our shoes maybe don't have good tread on the bottom of them, or they aren't a supportive shoe or supporting our arch or around our ankle, that might lead us to an increased risk of falls. Or if we have any vestibular conditions. So if we have any inner ear conditions, any vertigo, any vestibular nerve conditions, those can all lead to an increased risk as well. And then our chronic medical conditions. So we think about high or low blood pressure, diabetes. Those things can really increase our risk of falls as well if they're not being controlled properly. So when we talk about our risk factors that are associated with falls, we have modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. So our modifiable risk factors are things that we're able to change. Our non-modifiable risk factors are things that we can't change. So when we think about our non-modifiable risk factors, we think about age. As we get older, unfortunately, there are just some other medical conditions that can happen that increase our risk of falls, or maybe even make us a little bit more sedentary, making it harder for us to improve our strength and our balance. We're actually more likely to see falls in women as opposed to men. So our gender is a non-modifiable risk factor, something we aren't able to change about us. And then osteoporosis. So if we have osteoporosis and we have a vitamin D and calcium deficiency, we might be taking medications for that, but it's not something that we can completely reverse osteoporosis. And we still have that risk factor that we might experience a fall or a fracture related to a fall with osteoporosis. And then if we have foot deformities or gait abnormalities, we can do things to help them a little bit. We might get some orthotics, or we might use an assistive device like a cane or a walking stick, but it's not going to completely eliminate those foot deformities or gait abnormalities. So we still might have some pain with that osteoarthritis. Even if we use a cane and we're taking medications for it, it's still going to affect our gait a little bit. Now, when we talk about modifiable risk factors or things that we can change, strength and balance, we can always improve our strength and balance, which can lead us to a decreased risk of falls, because the stronger our muscles are, the better our balance is, less likely we are to fall, right? Medications, that's something that can be changed when talking with our doctor. Maybe we have some medications that are giving us side effects that are increasing our risk of fall. So talking with your doctor, maybe they can adjust that dose, or they can adjust when you take that medication, or they can adjust the medication that you're on. But definitely talking with your doctor before you make any of those switches. Making sure that we're eating a well-balanced diet is something that's important. We'll talk about that in a future class, but having proper nutrition is really important for us to decrease our risk of falls. Making sure that we're choosing proper footwear, something that's supportive around our ankle, something that has good tread on the bottom of it. And then vitamin D and calcium deficiencies, those are something that we can supplement for. So if you have a vitamin D or calcium deficiency, checking with your doctor, maybe you need supplementation for that to help decrease the risk of a fall associated with it. Vision, so if we have any visual impairments, we can get some corrective lenses to help with that visual impairment. We may even consider cataract surgeries if that's something that is causing our vision to not be as sharp as what it used to be. Vestibular conditions are something that can be treated oftentimes with either physical therapy or medications that can help decrease our risk of falls there. And then home hazards, which we're going to dive into a little bit more here. But home hazards are definitely something that we can change and modify. So when we talk about some statistics around falls, falls are the leading cause of injury for adults over the age of 65, and 1 in 4 adults report falling every year. Now, that doesn't include, though, our falls that go unreported to medical staff. So if somebody experiences a fall, they don't have an injury associated with that fall, they might not ever report that fall to their doctor or to a nurse or any medical staff that they see. In 2020, there were 532,347 older adults who fell in the state of Ohio. It's quite a large number. And in 2021, Ohio experienced 1,650 fall-related deaths. And when we look at it financially, approximately $50 billion are spent nationally on falls each year. So we're going to talk a little bit about home fall hazards and some home fall risks that maybe we can make some of those modifications to help decrease our risk of falls and help to lower some of the numbers on those statistics that you just saw. But when we look at our stairs, we want to make sure that we're not keeping shoes or clutter on or around our stairs. If you're somebody who maybe keeps a pair of shoes that you only wear outside on your basement steps, it may be a good idea to find a new place for those, because even though we know it's there, doesn't mean it's not a risk for us. And then checking our stairs for any broken or uneven pieces. This one here shows that broken concrete there, which can be really dangerous. When we're going upstairs, visually, we estimate with our vision and our feet where that next step is at. And with this, it could really put us off balance if we stepped up onto that next step and we either misjudged it, how far up it was, or how far up it wasn't, and we stepped on that and it gave a little bit of instability in our ankle there. So making sure we're getting those uneven or cracked steps repaired. And then having a light at the top and bottom of your stairs. So consider adding a two-way switch at the top and bottom so you can turn the lights on or off from either part of the stairs, and just making sure that you have a well-lit stairway. A lot of people too, we've heard in the past, will use some of like the motion detected lights on stairs. So that way, as you're going down, it lights up each step as you step onto it. That may be an option for you as well. And then making sure that your carpeting isn't loose on your stairs. So making sure that it's secured down, either having a professional come in and repair it and making sure it's secured, or having it tacked or taped down. You can see here, this could be a really big fall hazard. It's not on stairs, but if it was on stairs, you could get your toe caught underneath that, which would be really dangerous. And then checking our handrails. Do you have handrails? I know code typically says that you have to have more than 2 stairs in order to have a handrail, but I always encourage people, even if it is just 1 or 2 stairs, get some kind of handrail installed there because it can give you an extra touch point if you do start to lose your balance for whatever reason. But if you do have handrails on your flight of stairs, are they loose or are they connected secure? You want to make sure that those handrails are secure to the wall and they're not super loose, because if you go to grab a hold of that to prevent you from falling, you're likely to rip that out of the wall, which can lead to even a more serious injury. So making sure they're tightened and secure, and then making sure that you're able to differentiate from the next step. So with these, if you were standing on top of the stairs looking down, it's pretty hard to be able to tell, since they're all the same color, where one step ends and where the next step begins. So with this, they used that yellow tape to help define where the last step was at. Some stairs will even have this on each and every stair, so you can differentiate where that next step is at. If it's at home, some people will even count their stairs. So if they have 12 stairs coming up from their basement, they know when they've hit the 12th stair, they're at the bottom, and they don't miscalculate and step another step when it's not there, or miscalculate and take a flying leap from the 3rd step up. And then checking your floors too. So if you have throw rugs, making sure that you get them tacked or taped down in some way, or having a slip resistant underlay underneath those throw rugs. That's definitely really important. Making sure that they're not curling up on the edges, because when they start to curl up, we can get our toes caught underneath of them, which can be really dangerous, right? But if you don't have a slip resistant underlay under them either, they can become really slippery. I know we've ran into that with a rug in our kitchen, that we didn't have a slip resistant underlay underneath. And every time our dog hit it, he would slide across our kitchen because it wasn't secured down well enough. And then when you walk through your room, do you have to walk around furniture or other large objects? So consider making that pathway more clear. An example that I have of this is if you have a large dining room table and it sits in the middle of your dining room and it is becoming really cumbersome for you to walk around, maybe you consider pushing it to one side or the other of the dining room. So that way you have a wider walking space to be able to walk through. Just being cautious though too, as you start to move that furniture. Furniture can be really heavy, which can be really dangerous to be moving around. So just being aware of that as well. And then we also become really familiar with our surroundings in our home. So we might use some of that furniture as touch points. Being aware that if you're moving that touch point may be gone, and that could lead to an increased risk of fall as well. And is there any clutter left on the floor? Making sure that we're keeping those objects up off the floor. That includes dog bones, right? Or toys, if you have kids or grandkids. Keeping those up off the floor and picked up. I'm more often than not am tripping over one of my dog's toys on the floor. So just making sure to keep that clutter and those objects up off the floor. And then making sure we don't have cords and walkways. So finding a way to prevent those cords in the walkways and needing to step over or around cords. They make a lot of really cool things now where you can secure them to the wall. You can use command hooks to hook them to the wall. Just something where you're not having to step over it. Maybe it means that you position that lamp in a different way so that the cord is not running across the middle of your floor. And then when we look in our kitchen, are you placing things up on high shelves? If you are, maybe you consider moving them to a lower shelf that's within easy reach, especially those things that you're using more frequently. If you don't use that platter that you use for Thanksgiving only once a year, maybe put that up on a higher shelf. And when you have family or friends coming over, they can get that down for you when it's closer to the time that you're going to need it, as opposed to keeping it on the lower shelf and keeping all of those things that you use every day up high. And then, do you have a sturdy step stool? Consider getting a stool that has a high handrail to it so that you have something to hold on to. The lower that handrail is, the more dangerous it's going to be. and considering a step stool with rubber treads and rubber feet. The rubber treads are going to give you more traction on that step stool, whereas those plastic treads can lead to some slipping of our feet a little bit. And then same with the rubber feet, it just grips to that surface better so that the step stool isn't sliding around on us. And then when we think about our bedrooms, is the light near the bed hard to reach? If it is, try moving that closer to your bed so that you don't have to get up from bed to be able to turn that light on to see to get out of your room. That could be really dangerous. So having it somewhere close to your bed that you can reach from your bed and not have to get up is best case scenario. And then if you have a dark pathway from your bed to the bathroom, consider adding night lights. The example here is actually a photosensitive night light that can rotate. So those may be a good option. They also make a lot of motion detection night lights now. So maybe you have an outlet by your bed when you stand up. So when you put your feet down, that signals that light to turn on to help illuminate that pathway from your bedroom to your bathroom. And then when we think about our bathrooms, checking to see if the tub or shower floor is slippery. And if it is, you could consider adding a non-slip bath mat or non-slip coating to the floor. Now, the only caveat I have with the rubber bath mats like this is that they do slip a little bit when they start to get buildup on them of products. So these typically can go in the machine wash. So periodically just pulling them up and getting them in the machine washer so that way you don't get buildup of shampoo or conditioner on the suction cups or on the top of that, making it a little bit more slippery. And then the other thing thinking about in the bathrooms, do you need support when getting in and out of the bath or shower or up off the toilet? If so, consider adding the grab bars. They make so many different kinds nowadays. You can make them as fancy as you like or as industrial as you like. These are a little bit more industrial looking or hospital grade, but they make some really nice fancy ones now. The only other thing too with these is if you are going to add grab bars, having them installed by a professional is something that's really important to do. They do have to go into studs, and especially if you're going to have them installed inside of a shower, you have to have a specific drill bit to go through the tile, particularly, not necessarily the shower surrounds, but the tile, you have to have a specific drill bit to get through them. And then when we talk about our home fall safety too, it's really important for us to stay connected. When we teach our classes, we usually have a guest that comes in and talks with our classes from a local fire department. And with her statistics she gives in their local fire department area, they actually have done some statistics on their falls that they've had in the area. And typically, on average, it takes about 2 to 3 days for someone to notice that someone hasn't been out of their house. So if they've maybe experienced a fall, it could be 2 to 3 days that they're laying there before their neighbors or a family member contacts the fire department to come and check on that person because they haven't seen them in a couple days. So that could be 2 to 3 days without medications, without getting up to go to the bathroom, without water, without food, all of those things. So that's why it's really important for us to stay connected and why we need to broaden the amount of people that we're making contact with every day. So some ideas to help with that a little bit, setting up a phone system with a neighbor or relative or a friend to get checked in on once a day. So they call you once or twice every day to check in on you and ensure that you're okay. Some people have a neighbor that calls them in the morning and a family member that calls them in the evening. So that way they're still getting that check-in once or twice a day. And that way they're ensuring that that person is okay for the day. They're up, they're moving, they haven't experienced a fall, anything like that. Enrolling at the local senior centers may be another option to help you stay connected with others. And you could even consider virtual fitness classes that meet weekly as an easy way to connect with those that are your age. So that may be a way if you don't want to leave your home, you want to stay home a little bit more. Connecting with those fitness classes weekly can still prompt you to connect with people your age. You're getting that check-in at least weekly, and those people, you become close with those people. Maybe you check in on each other regularly then. And then considering Meals on Wheels is another option. And it's additional resource. Some people don't necessarily need the meals, but they use it to ensure that someone is checking in on them regularly or checking in on a family member regularly. Because with Meals on Wheels, if they don't get an answer from the door, they will report back to their home base and escalate that to make sure that they are making contact with that person daily. And then staying active is another vital part of fall prevention. So we already know muscle strength helps us to be more steady and steady on our feet and helps us prevent falls. But it can be a little more challenging to stay active all year, right? Because we have winter, we have really hot, humid days in the summer. Weather can really play a factor in that. So I always encourage people enrolling at their local community centers is a great option. Taking virtual or in-person silver sneakers classes, it's typically an insurance benefit for anyone that is receiving Medicare. And enrolling at your local gym to utilize their walking tracks when weather might be questionable, or even your local community center can also be a good place for walking tracks when maybe it's going to be really stormy that day, or maybe it might be super cold or snowing. And then in the summer, considering walking during cooler parts of the day, thinking early morning or early evening so that we're avoiding the dark, but we're also avoiding the really hot, humid portion of the day. And then utilizing the activity you do around your house as part of your fall prevention strategy. You're still utilizing vital muscles in your everyday life. So even if you are becoming a little more active around the house, that can help us to improve our strength as well. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation on home fall safety and home fall prevention with our fundamentals of fall prevention courses. Thanks.